Hello, welcome back to another Theory Thursday. Today we're not going over a musical theory concept like pen and paper, but a guitar concept, and it's one of the most important things any guitarist should learn, and that's how to change your strings. Okay, today we are changing the strings on my Ibanez AF75. It's a hollow body, which means there's certain things you do, certain things you don't do, and some very specific things that you need to watch out for. So that's what we're doing today. And I got my Mickey Mouse watch on, and I got a new brown knit tie, and I like it. A little skinnier than I usually like, but I kind of dig it. So anyway, that's what we got going on today. So without any further ado, let's go. Okay, here we are at the kitchen table, getting ready to change the strings on this hollow body guitar. Now there's two main ways to do this with a hollow body, and there's probably way more, but there's two main ones, and the reasoning is because of these two pieces right here, okay? This is what we call a tailpiece, and on this specific guitar, and you mostly see this on hollow bodies and semi-hollow bodies, this is what we'd call a trapeze tailpiece, because if you can see, it's actually attached at the end pin, right? It's not touching the top of the guitar. It's attached to the end pin. So the strings go into there, they come over the bridge. Now this is the other piece. This bridge right here, with all your individual saddles, right? This bridge is not glued onto the guitar. Okay? It's not screwed in, it's not glued on or anything. The only thing keeping this bridge in place is the force of the strings pressing down. Okay? And that's in part because of the trapeze tailpiece, right? If we did this like a regular guitar, a regular electric or acoustic, right? The end pins would be here, it'd be wrapped around, and it would just be easier for this thing to fall over because the tension is coming up and around, trying to push it over, right? With the trapeze tailpiece, it's coming up and coming back down. It's a very slight peak, but that's what's keeping this in place. It's the downward pressure, okay? So the two main ways to do this, the long way and the way you could really get this guitar clean, is you take all the strings off, right? Which means you can move this, you can flip that over, you can scrub the whole body down, and all that stuff. But you need to put this back exactly where it was. Why? Well, a couple reasons. For one, this thing, there's nothing holding it in place, so if you took all the strings off, this would just move around, and if you put it the wrong way on this axis, right, the strings are going to be shifted, right, if you put this in the wrong spot. The other way is if you put it in the wrong spot on this axis, your intonation is going to be wrong. And we can talk more about intonation when we talk about setting up a guitar and to actually intonate the guitar. The gist of it is the 12th fret should be about halfway between your nut and your bridge, right? And if it's not, let's say this was way down here, if you try to play anywhere on this string, or any of the strings, if this thing's way down here, your notes aren't going to sound like your regular notes. They're going to be way too flat. And the other way around, if you put it farther this way, all your strings are going to be sharp, okay? Because your length is wrong, which means your intonation is wrong, right? It's a precise measurement, and I think it's more precise than people think about. But that's actually why you have these little screws in here to individually set the intonation on each string, okay? But anyway, so the first way to do this is take all the strings off, remove this, or the other way is you can get some painter's tape, you know, that blue stuff that doesn't leave any residue, it's easy to come up, right? Painter's tape. I Definitely don't use duct tape. Don't use anything stronger than painter's tape. You can just tape this to the body if you're worried about putting it back in the wrong spot, okay? Now, the other way to change the strings, which is what we're gonna do today, is the easier way. You don't have to worry about moving this, right? We're just gonna do one string at a time, okay? So we're gonna take the E string off, right? Clean whatever we need to clean, and then we're gonna put the new E string back on, okay? We're gonna leave all these other ones. Then we'll do the B string, right? And we'll go one by one so that there's always tension pressing down on this bridge and it won't ever have to move, okay? So I'm gonna start to get to work here. We're gonna speed some stuff up and slow down, and there'll be pictures so you can see exactly what's going on. Maybe I'll get a picture of the trapeze so you can see there's nothing on top of this thing isn't touching the top. And I'll show you how I tie the strings at the end and all that good stuff. So today we're putting these D'Addario Chromes on. It's just a classic for jazz guitarists. They've even gone so far and called it the jazz light gauge. So I have 11s here. You can go up to 12s. I'm sure they make them even bigger than that, but that's that. That's what we're going with today, which I think is what's on here already. So if you're new to changing strings, there will mostly always be a little diagram showing you which strings are which. It's pretty easy to find out because obviously the thinner string is going to go on top, the thickest string is going to go on the bottom, but they do give you a little diagram here. So I just have 6 strings here, so I'm going to stop right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I see the brass color is going to be my low E, and then the red color is going to be my A, right? So that's what we have right here, brass and A. So let's start on the bottom then, and we'll get going. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to take off this first string. We're going to leave everything else. Okay, you don't need pliers. See, this is my Leatherman. I've used this for every restring and work I need to be done on any guitar. I use this every time just because you can cut the strings with it, but also the ends of strings can be really pointy actually, and I've poked myself countless times, and so I like to have pliers just to be able to grab the pointy end of strings, and I don't have to worry about poking myself. So the other thing is sometimes you'll see me cut these strings so they're easier to deal with, like that. You need to make sure you loosen the string before you do that. So these strings are all tight right now, and I wouldn't want to go cut this. Why? Because at the moment, the strings are pulling on the neck, right? They're keeping the bridge down, they're pulling on the neck, and if you snip one of these strings, all of that tension is dissipated in an instant, right? And it really throws things out of whack, and you can risk damaging your guitar. Okay, so that's why you want to loosen it first, make sure all the tension is then distributed to all the other strings, and then you can go ahead and snip it, okay? So I just wanted to point that out. Okay, now before we get to the other strings, we need to put this other one on. You know what, I might just dust this off quick. Okay, we're gonna hook this into the tailpiece. That's tight. I'm gonna make sure it's on the saddle it's supposed to be. It's more of a problem when you have all the strings off. Sometimes it can, get all wonky, but it's easier when we just have the one string off. So we'll keep that on the saddle it's supposed to be. I like to turn the peg so that the hole is going this way instead of this way, just so I can easily string the string through. What I like to do is I just pull it, regularly taut. I'm not pulling tight or anything, but you take that and you just pick a point. It doesn't really matter down here. Pick a point at a fret and you pull it back 1 fret's length, right? So you see that? So I'm going to take this and pull it back to this fret. See that? You can go a little less, you can go a little more. It also depends on what string you're on. Sometimes the strings take longer to wrap around. For example, the higher strings are going to take more wraps to get up to pitch than it is going to take the lower ones. So take this, pull it back one, and then what I do is I just, right there, I bend the string up. Okay? Bend it up right at the end. And we're going to just start tightening. Okay, and it's okay if it gets all wonky over there. And I'll take a picture of what we're doing here. So here's the part of the string that I bent up. Let's get this focused, right? And what you see is I started twisting the string, and you want the string to go under the hole that you just bent up, right? So that just locks it into place. What else you'll see, I'll do it like this, is all the strings are the same. They come out through the nut and they wrap around the peg that way, okay? So you always want the strings to come out and around. Through the nut, hit the peg and come around, okay? That just gives you consistency with all your tuning pegs. You're gonna be turning them the same way. If they're flat, you're gonna be turning them the same way. If they're sharp, you just want them all to match up. And then the same goes for the other side, okay? So that's that. The other thing you just need to be, let me get this focused here, is when you're wrapping, you want the string to stay under the previous wraps, okay? So let's look at an example of one of these old strings. See that? How it started at the top and it just kept wrapping and wrapping and going down? That's what you want. You don't want the strings to go up. You don't want it to wrap up. You want it to wrap down. So tuning stability is one thing. The other thing is, especially if you have a guitar that doesn't have a break angle like this. So what you see is the neck is a straight line, and then the headstock is at an angle. That's what we call a break angle, okay? Break angle, sorry, not ankle. So the purpose of it is to really set the nut as the point of contact, right? If this was just straight across and there was no break angle, even on like Fender guitars, Telecasters, the headstocks are straight. There is a little bit of a dip to them, but the strings need to go down the tuning peg, just like this. And even on the higher strings, you'll see that there's what we call string trees, that the strings have to go down under and then to the tuning peg, because the straighter the string is, the thinner the sound is gonna be, right? It's gonna sound like a sitar or something, okay? So those are the things. So you wanna break the, angle the string up, start turning, and you want the string to always go under the wraps, okay? All right, I'm gonna put you back on the stand. Okay, so we have our first string on. You can tighten it up. You don't need to tune it or anything yet, because these are gonna be all out of whack in 5 minutes anyway, because what needs to happen is the strings are tight and some of that tension is gonna be released. The string is gonna get used to being that tight, and the tension is gonna loosen, and basically the string needs to stretch out is the gist of it. So you'll be tuning it for a little bit until it becomes used to the state it's going to be in. So I'm just going to continue and do the strings the same way we did this one, and I'll just stop the video if I need to say anything. So that'll be that. Okay, so that was it. We got all the strings on. You can see I was cleaning as I was going. It's a lot easier to clean if you do it the long way. You're taking all the strings off at once, and then you can go ahead, clean, dust, whatever you need to do. So we got all the strings on now. Now what do we do? Well, we got these extra pieces of string here. You can cut them off right now, and what you want to do is you just take some sort of wire cutter and you cut them as close to the peg as you can. Okay, and then if it's a little over the peg after you cut, you can take the metal and just kind of push down the sharp part, because not only will that hurt your fingers if you touch them, but if you put them in a case that doesn't have any protection over by the headstock, it can really rip up the fabric in whatever case you're using. So cut these as close as you can to the peg and then push down the sharp end when you're done with that. However, what I like to do just to be safe is I like to tune this guitar, have it sit for a while, tune it again, and just keep retuning it until all the strings are in what's the word? I can't think of the word. Until everything's in tune and it's not changing anymore. Because what can happen is we tighten these strings and everything, and as we tune, you know, the pegs are going to be turning. There'll be more wraps, there'll be less wraps around the peg, and we can get what we call slippage. And what that means is if maybe there's some sort of leverage in one of these wraps where if we just tune it a little bit tighter, the string is going to slip just a little bit through the peg, and all of a sudden the string goes flat. So if we cut these down to the peg and then we have slippage, well, all of a sudden the string's off the peg and it unravels, and you need a new string because there's not enough extra to loop it back in and wrap it around again. So I like to leave these on just until the guitar gets in tune and stays in tune. Then I take these and I snip the ends off. So yeah, that's how you do it. Of course, there's a lot more with intonation. Once you get strings changed, especially if they're a different gauge, these are the same ones as I had, so I'm not too worried about it. But if you go up in gauge, and what I mean by that is the thickness, you can go down or up in the thickness of the strings, and they have tone qualities and plays different, sounds different. But if you go up and down, the intonation can change slightly because of the tension on the strings. So you might need to change your distance on your saddles or even the whole bridge. So if you're not up to that, I would recommend just bringing it to a guitar tech, because that's what they do, right? They set up guitars and they make them sound as good as they can. So yeah, if you have any questions, of course, leave them in the comments, and I'll do my best to answer all of them. Anyway, that's all I got today. Thank you.